Well, thanks so much for joining our webinar today. We'll get started in just a minute. Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Apple Healthcare Workflows for Beginners. My name's Adam, and I'm joined today by my colleague Tim. We're both part of a team focused exclusively on healthcare solutions. So a brief look at our agenda. We'll start with a quick peek into various frontline and back-office healthcare use cases of Apple devices, cover 4 key concepts for device management, and leave you with some information of how to learn more. Tim and I will be online monitoring Q&A the entire time, so feel free to submit any questions that you may have. In many different healthcare organizations across the world, Apple devices are transforming the way that care is delivered and consumed. I love this example from Geisinger, who has well over 11,000 Apple mobile devices deployed in their institution. But in this particular example, we see the way in which it can make an impact. A mother being able to FaceTime with their newborn baby who's physically separated from them within the institution. At UVA Health, where iPads are being given to pediatric patients and their families to extend care back to the home after discharge. At Emma Children's Hospital in Amsterdam, where iPads are provided to children for distraction and entertainment when they're admitted. Or Alberta Health, who's leveraged iPads to allow for quick virtual connections and in some cases virtual goodbyes through the pandemic. One of my favorite examples is UC San Diego Health, who has all of these devices deployed for different use cases. So to be successful with this type of mobility strategy, what does an IT team need to do to prep? Well, today we're going to cover 4 Apple healthcare workflows. Starting with deployment and onboarding, digging into security and management, self-service methodologies, as well as how to refresh and reset devices at end of use. So to start with the first bucket, why does deployment and onboarding matter? Well, there's been a flood of new mobility use cases over the last year driven by the pandemic. And for decades before that, new mobile transformation use cases driving change for employees on the front line. Well, if we need our people to be productive quickly with technology, how do we make sure that we remove friction when they're first getting set up? This is the core heart of why modern deployment and onboarding methodologies are important for your organization. And to show you how it works, I'm going to hand it off to Tim.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. He is totally right about how things have changed in the last year, and I don't expect things to go back to the way they were 100%. We've seen how you can deploy new hardware and software without needing to have IT touch it much, or at all. Apple Business/School Manager has been around for a while now, and it makes it really easy to make sure a device gets enrolled in your MDM, no matter where the device is located. With Jamf Connect, you can personalize that experience even further on the Mac. Your new doctor can get a new machine, turn it on, get it connected to Wi-Fi, sign in with Jamf Connect with their known username and password, and then get all the right software and settings. Same with your nursing staff on the iPads and the iPhones that are on the floor. It all starts with Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. Yes, you can technically enroll a device without it, but this way is way better. As long as you have an ABM account, your devices can be auto-added to Jamf and be tied to the MDM until you deprovision it. It's very seamless. From there, that iPad, in this case, can get placed in what we call a pre-stage enrollment. There are multiple things you can set here, like making sure your team doesn't remove the MDM profile, keeping it secure, or even disallowing it to pair with a computer to keep the information on the device. You can skip all the steps you want to skip in the Setup Assistant, like here. You can also give it a name that fits your particular nomenclature or naming conventions in your hospital system. And then here in the scope section, you can see that this is the device from that Apple Business Manager screenshot I showed just a minute ago. The same exact steps are with the Mac, but with a bunch of added features you can do. I'll go into some of these in a bit, but you can just glance at this and see that I'm displaying certs, Jamf Connect, which is that Jamf made tool that I talked about a little bit ago about signing in with your credentials during the provisioning process. And it ties the user to the device, and it keeps the local password in sync with your identity provider, and even encryption. Once the right hardware is in the right hands and you can start having visibility to it, You can do even cooler things.
So what does it look like in practice?
Right, so with all those tools in place, we can make sure your whole staff has the right apps and the right kind of security, but it also opens up the ability to hand a device to a patient with a totally different set of rules. We can put apps that grant them access to their medical records, allow them to control the temperature or drapes from the bed, and even have video calls with loved ones. And because we can remotely wipe the device after a patient is discharged with our EMR integrations, we can assure your patient data is destroyed. So let's see what it looks like to set up an iPad from scratch. This could be a patient iPad, could be a nurse's iPad, could be a nurse's iPhone. The experience will be very similar for all of them. So the patient is getting admitted and getting a clean iPad that's been completely sanitized and purged of all the data. What they'll see at the very beginning is a welcome screen that should look familiar to anyone who's ever powered on an iPhone. They'll select their language, the country, and the Wi-Fi. And then Jamf will take over at that point, securely setting it up into our pre-stage enrollments and into our smart groups and deploying the appropriate apps and restrictions based on what the selections are that your IT department has made for that particular device. And now back to Adam.
Thanks, Tim. So if that's why deployment and onboarding is so important, how it works, and really what the tech is behind the scenes, how has it helped orgs in practice? Well, I want to call back to Geisinger. In particular, they saw thousands of devices being deployed for new purposes based on the global pandemic. Some of that technology was pre-existing within their facility, used for patient bedside or other deployments. And their team was pushed hard to quickly change configurations and get devices out to new people. They needed to leverage all of the methodologies that Tim just walked through to make that effortless out in the field. So moving into our next category, security and management. To start, why does it matter? Well, I think that we can all align that the information that caregivers in particular and patients are accessing on these mobile devices is very sensitive. We absolutely want to ensure that healthcare devices used at the point of care are compliant and not putting your organization at risk for HIPAA security rule or HIPAA privacy rule violations. How does it work? Well, again, I'm going to hand it off to Tim to take you through the details.
After, or even during, the enrollment process, you will want to make sure that the data on the device is secure. And we can do that in multiple ways. The main one that we absolutely need to do is make sure that there is a device passcode on the device if it's an iPhone or an iPad. Other than making it simply more difficult to get access to the info on the device, it also encrypts it, vital for any security stance. We also want a way to keep your device secure and compliant with smart groups. And something fairly new that Jamf built for the Mac side of your deployment, Jamf Protect, which is a way to prevent Mac OS malware, detect and remediate Mac-specific threats, and monitor endpoints for compliance. Now, I won't get too far into the weeds, so I'm going to show you some of the reporting we have along with some cool smart group ideas. Of course, if you want a more complete look at what any of this looks like, don't hesitate to reach out to us. So here's a list of smart groups that we have in one of our instances. After a device gets enrolled, it'll fall into your defined smart groups. You can even get an email notification when a new device has been defined as meeting your criteria or has stopped meeting your criteria. Smart groups collect all the fields of the inventory and create buckets based on some of the rules you've set. If you look at the examples here on the screen, you can see things like iOS needs update, which would be looking for a criteria of is an iPhone, iOS is less than X, and maybe some other rules if you want to keep some devices on older versions and keep other devices more up to date. You can see devices that might be lost right at the top. That's looking for devices that haven't checked in after a certain length of time. This allows you to be more proactive with potentially lost or stolen devices. Part of being in compliance is making sure you are aware of what you have in your environment at any given time. Making sure that Gatekeeper is turned on is only a small part of your compliance, but if your team wants to easily verify that, you can run these custom reports and export them as a CSV file anytime you want to. Now, I talked about the passcode on the iOS device. And that's a configuration profile you can send down to all your devices that need it, and you can define things like how long, how complex, and the longevity of the passcode. With Macs, you want to make sure File Vault is turned on. In this policy, we have it set to turn disk encryption on during the recurring check-in, which you define as the admin, once per computer. Once it's on, it won't bother you again. You can create a smart group that looks for encryption is on and get an email notification if it gets disabled for any reason at all. Between making sure the devices are enrolled with automatic device enrollment, Jamf Connect to make sure it's right with the right person, Jamf Protect on the Mac side to protect you from anything that might be going on that device, you can personalize it, protect it, and encrypt all of your endpoints. Now you're well on your way to a secure environment without needing to have the device in IT's hands at all. You can let your end users do almost all of that work. What will your end users see when you have deployed all these settings? They would be able to go in and see that File Vault is turned on. They wouldn't necessarily be able to turn it off, but it would tell them that their data is encrypted using the built-in Mac encryption software. They could see that there's a passcode required on their device. And if you look a little bit further down there on the far right side, that iPhone being disabled, if a device wanders away and you need to put it in lost mode to locate it, you can do that right from the console. It will lock the device, put it in a low state mode, and report its GPS location back to your team so you'll know where that device is. And I'll hand it back to Adam.
Thanks, Tim. So if that's the why and the how behind security and management, what does it actually look like in practice? Well, I actually wanted to bring up this example from UVA Health, who leverages a Jamf partner to deploy iPads for remote patient monitoring. Our partner Locus Health manages these iPads as a full turnkey service, both to University of Virginia Health System as well as others. But take note how limited the user experience is as configured through Jamf Pro. This is intentional. Using all of the methodologies that Tim showed you, we can ensure that a user only has access to the right level of application for their need or use case. Why not limit potential security risks right out of the gate by not having certain applications available on the device? Of course, they can go one step further to leverage smart group reporting and auditing capabilities in Jamf Pro to understand if these devices are in good health while deployed. So moving to our next category, self-service methodologies. So what is this and why does it matter? Well, many of us know that the core way to troubleshoot or get a resolution when experiencing issues with technology is to put in an IT ticket. Although many IT teams are great about providing quick support, what if there's a way that the user could take a stance themselves to troubleshoot and remediate? What if we can make it so simple for a user to have an easy button that clears caches or ensures the right policies are applied to their Mac, or similar kind of concepts for an iOS device? Well, the benefit can be huge to this. IT can focus on more strategic tasks, and users feel that they have control and are powerful and ready to be purposeful with technology. So how does it work? I'll hand it back to Tim.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Adam. Yeah, I am a big fan of self-service. Back before I worked at Jamf, I used Jamf as a customer, and I used self-service extensively throughout that environment. Here it is in the back end here. You can see at the bottom the distribution method I have set to make available in self-service. That means that it'll be installed when the user wants it to be installed and not when you deploy it from IT. It allows the user to be able to have a little more control, as Adam said, over their own environment, which can be really, really great. And it saves some of your team some hassle sometimes. You can see here that I have scoped it to a smart group, my install apps here smart group. And if you use self-service and the volume purchase program, it's going to grab the description from the App Store. It'll grab the icon from the App Store and make all of that available in self-service so the user can see what they're installing. And on the Mac side, you can actually ask them to authenticate with your single sign-on provider before they can have access to whatever apps you've asked them to install through self-service. And then you can brand it however you'd like it to look. And same with the iOS side. So let's see some of the things that we've done with self-service. Here at Jamf, we've got some categories over there on the left-hand side in that column, we've got like a start here category and things like that. Adam mentioned an easy button. We did that at Jamf. It clears caches and runs some scripts, all of that being deployed through self-service rather than through an install now policy. And my personal favorite, printers. I always hated installing printers. I always hated troubleshooting printers. So the ability to let the user see what printers are appropriate for them, specific to their device, and allow them to install it or reinstall it depending on their needs without having to contact IT. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but those tickets really, really do add up. And on the iOS side, you can deploy whatever apps or books are available in the App Store through self-service. They can install them on demand without needing an Apple ID or any sort of elevated auth. Same on the Mac side. You don't need to be an administrator on the Mac in order to install something through self-service. In iOS, you just open self-service, see the apps that IT has defined could be available to you, and then you can install them whenever you'd like. Really handy. And I'll hand it back to Adam.
Thanks, Tim. So if that's self-service and why it's important and how it works, well, how has it worked in practice for hospitals? I wanted to focus on one of our customers and partners in the Netherlands. Emma Children's Hospital in Amsterdam has iPads deployed for patients, for distraction and entertainment. Much of this is driven through a Jamf partner called CareServant. However, they also leverage self-service as a quick way for these children to get access to other apps that they'd like on their devices. When they're done with use, these apps are removed and redeployed through an integration to Jamf to ensure that they're cleansed for the next patient. Which moves us right into the fourth category, refresh and reset workflows. So to start, why does this matter? At the beginning, we mentioned how in some organizations, challenges such as the pandemic require for quick adaptation of the technology that they have. We need to make sure that it's simple in any market to repurpose Apple technology. This could be based on a one-time need or something ongoing. This varies widely. In some cases, a one-to-one corporate issued device might stay with the user for 3 years. In other cases, a nurse might use a device only for 8 hours of their day. Whatever the scenario, how do we make sure it's easy for users and doesn't bog down IT? These are the reasons in which modern reset and refresh workflows are important. So how does it work? You know the drill. Back to Tim.
Thanks, Adam. The ability to remotely wipe a device is something that most MDMs should be able to do. In Jamf, it is a button on the device record that's called Wipe Device that allows you to completely wipe that device, whether that's on the iOS, the iPad OS, or the Mac OS. On the iOS side, we did build a little app called Reset, which allows you to wipe the device from the device if your IT has determined the need for that to happen. And on the Mac side, we could easily create a wipe button direct in self-service that they could open up, and you would deliver an RM, RF script right to the device, right from that button, and nuke the device whenever you want to. Your mileage may vary, and you may not necessarily need that. You may just need that big wipe device button right inside Jamf. And what does it look like? Should look pretty familiar. You will see the Apple logo pop up and the new installing button happen. It can be done completely over the air, and we even have the ability to suppress the proximity setup for the next user. So how does it work in practice? I'll hand it back to Adam to talk about that.
Alberta Health, who needed to deploy out iPads for virtual family visitations during the global pandemic, and how key Reset as an app was to make sure that a patient could quickly wipe their iPad at the end of use before it was handed over to the next patient. It's so awesome to be able to spend some time here on these core foundational elements of success with device management. Now, truly, these are applicable to other markets beyond healthcare. But as you've seen throughout the presentation, we've focused in on a number of examples where iOS, iPadOS, macOS, and even tvOS devices are used in the healthcare market. You know, I, for one, am super jazzed about single login. Tim, myself, many others have been supporting these applications for years. And something we've heard loud and clear from healthcare leaders and others is that login fatigue is real. And single sign-on in a native over-the-air way on iOS has been desired for years. We're so pumped to see how the community embraces this new release and how app partners quickly develop support into their applications to ensure that we can have many choices for cross-application single sign-on. As mentioned, Tim and I are monitoring the Q&A. If you have any outstanding questions, feel free to submit them now and we'll answer them via chat. For more information, please head over to jamf.com/healthcare, where you can find more specific information on our patient experience, clinical communications, as well as our telehealth solutions. Thank you so much, and hope you have a great rest of your day.